Hey, good morning or afternoon, everyone. Today, we're going to go through sort of a review of the session we did at Summit that kind of covers off our product line and kind of what we do and who we are. As Brian mentioned, feel free to ask any questions as we go through either the presentation and demo. So I'll do a little bit of a presentation, and then we'll jump in and actually look a little bit at the software as well. We will keep it to 30-45 minutes. Sorry, I'm repeating everything Brian said. That's okay. Again, ask any questions in the question box, and I'll be happy to answer them as we go through. Now, to just give some background before we jump into some of the meat of it, if you don't know who we are, we work primarily in the manufacturing distribution industries. We work with both NAV, since way back when, all the way up to Business Central, on AppSource and on premises and everything else. We've been around for about 10 years roughly, and we have been working with the Business Central platform even before it was called Business Central. We're based in Western Canada, but we have offices sort of worldwide, other parts of Canada and the US and the Netherlands as well. And everything we do is through resellers. So if you have questions about any of the products or anything else, normally you can just go ahead and contact your existing NAV or Business Central partner. They should be able to help you out, get in contact with us if they need to. You can check our website for a list of those partners, or if you really need to, you can contact us directly as well, and we'd be happy to help answer any questions you have. All right, so that's who we are. What we do is really anything to do with manufacturing distribution, so kind of the whole supply chain thing here. So there's a lot of gaps in NAV and Business Central. In those manufacturing distribution industries that we fill with individual add-ons. So really anything from procurement, like that's, planning, like doing your purchase planning and all that sort of thing, to receiving, and all the way out to KPI reporting and things like that on some of the things that we deal with in the operations area. So really any of these areas we have a solution for. So that's kind of what we do. We fill the gaps in all the various areas of Business Central or NAV. And how we do that is with this product line here. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of these, and then we're going to jump in more detail on some other slides. Now, a couple that I'll cover off on this page that I don't have more detailed slides for. Things like enhanced planning worksheet. So I mentioned purchase planning. So if you're a distributor and you're running the planning worksheet in NAV or Business Central today, that guy's a good tool to use. It gives you a better dashboard for planning. Plus it has logic in there for, planning distribution type purchasing better than standard NAV or Business Central MRP. And if you are just running MRP in a production environment, then this is, again, a much better dashboard for running the standard NAV MRP. If you're on the Business Central Cloud, now I will get into what all these applications are in a moment, and they are almost all available for Business Central Cloud, so the Microsoft hosted, and also NAV on-premises, generally from NAV 2013 and up. All of these are supported. But things like Barcode Generator is Business Central only. If you're on the cloud, there's really no way to add barcodes to reports or anything like that unless you have this tool, so you can use that free download, free install, go ahead, do it, and then your partner or your developers can add barcodes to reports. These guys here, I do have a slide on them, but I'll cover it here real quick. Nav Extender and Doc Extender, also free tools. You just go to navextender.com if you're on Windows, the Windows client in NAV or Business Central. Download it, run it. You don't need a license change. You don't need to modify NAV or any of those sorts of things. And you can now drag and drop directly into any card page within NAV, right? So again, no modifications or license or any of that kind of stuff. Doc Extender is the Business Central version of that, where you go and you can install it and it's free. And again, you can just drag and drop in Business Central Cloud. The last one here really isn't a product, but I always like to mention it because you see a lot of people getting hacked all the time. And in the position we're in, we're asking for remote access fairly often to install the software, to debug and things like that. And we find people send us usernames and passwords in the email in plain text. Well, don't do that. Use SafeSend, so it's isafesend.com. Use that to send, if you have to send people passwords, especially us or somebody else, use that tool and it's a lot safer than just using email to send you passwords. All right, so that's the public service portion of this session. Now, if you want any additional information on anything we talked about today, you can go to our website. You can contact us as well. So if you're already sick of hearing my voice this morning, you can go to the website and check all this stuff out without having to listen to me. But joke's on you. Most of the videos are still me talking, so you're still stuck with me no matter what. Anyway, you can go to the website, and there's a bunch of direct links for the products that I'll jump through in a sec here. Again, I'm going to go through, a bunch of these products, a bit of a description of each of these, and then I'm going to show you the actual software. And we try to keep it to 34 to 45 minutes, so we're not going to get into a lot of detail, but you'll get a general idea of some of the key products that we offer. So one of the main ones that we're known for is the Warehouse Insight, and that's basically mobile warehouse management. So essentially, on a handheld device, I'm able to do shipping, receiving, all of those sorts of things. And there's a whole bunch of advantages to using that product. There's a bunch of these guys out there on the market, this type of solution. We have one of the best ones out there, probably the best one out there. We have things like, license plating and advanced inventory count and a number of other things. So on that Warehouse Insight, if you do need to have mobile warehouse management running on a tablet or a handheld device like that, these are all the different things that you get with the solution, including some advanced options like, image integration. So if I'm receiving and I've got damaged product in front of me, I can take a picture of it with a handheld, and it'll automatically upload to the purchase order so the purchaser can start a claim, or I can take a picture of a truck before it leaves to prove that I shipped everything in good shape, or whatever you want to do, or just capture images of signed documents. The application builder is a big one because everything that's on the handheld device, and I'll show you a little bit of that software, is built in our built-in application designer. And what that means is you can extend the solution yourself. You don't actually need us if you don't want, or your partner can do it. But it means that, even though there's these 20-some applications you get with the system out of the box, if you want to create your own or modify how any of these guys work, you've got that capability. And then there's a bunch of additional, advanced capabilities that we have that other people just don't offer at all. All right, so that was Warehouse Insight. You'll see a little bit of that in a moment. What goes with it quite often is Dynamic Ship. And this is a nice little, plug-in add-on. Doesn't modify any base nav, and if you're in Business Central, of course, you just install it, and there it is. And this allows you to do, it really simplifies your shipping. What it does is it allows you to do rate shopping, so you can compare rates across multiple carriers, and that's all done in real time, and it's using your account numbers to get the rates, everything else. You can generate your shipping labels from UPS, FedEx, all of those kinds of guys. We have about 100 different carriers we support today. If you do LTL shipping, we can support that as well, and we will actually have a couple hundred LTL carriers supported here shortly as well for that online rate shopping and bill of lading generation and all those sorts of things, right? So today you can still do LTL without that online rate shopping, and you can still print bills of lading. And of course you can get online labels, online tracking, all of those sorts of things from within Business Central or NAV. All right, Shop Floor Insight it's a manufacturing execution system. So if you're a manufacturer and you need to capture your labor or even time and attendance and quality and output and consumption, or do graphical scheduling, then this is the tool for you. So you can use touchscreens or barcoded data entry, and you can scan your labor times in, again, do all of those other things, quality, everything else, directly from that interface. And the nice thing about this is all of these applications are built right into NAV or Business Central. So there's no separate database you need to integrate or anything else. If I change something in Shop Floor Insight, like I drag and drop a production order from one date to another, that's immediately reflected within NAV, and vice versa, right? So all of the products, again, are tied right into NAV and Business Central. Now, inventory management, this is the advanced inventory count. Often this goes with the Warehouse Insight because people want to use scanners to do their inventory count. But you can also use it in a paper-based approach, where today, if you're using the physical inventory journal in NAV or the Warehouse physical inventory journal, those things kind of suck. They're not, I shouldn't say suck in a recorded webinar, but there I did it again. Anyway, they're not good. They're not ideal. So what this does is it fills all of those gaps that you have with the physical inventory journal or Warehouse physical inventory journal. So even if you're doing paper-based counts, This will improve that significantly. So for example, it reconciles lot numbers and serial numbers. So standard nav, if I've got 100 lot numbers in stock and I count 80, it doesn't want to know which 80 I counted. It wants to know which 20 I didn't count. Well, you don't know that either because you didn't count them. And then you got to manually enter those lot numbers. So it solves that. Plus it allows recounts and auditable recounts. If you have auditors coming in to check your inventory counts, I mean, it's a must-have solution if you've got a lot of inventory. And again, works with paper-based or with the scanners as well. Document drag and drop, I mentioned that already. Nav extender, you just go to navextender.com, download it, run it, and you can drag and drop. It's awesome. Same thing with Doc Extender as well on Business Central Cloud. Point of sale. So we have, if you're a manufacturer that has a parts counter as an example, where you have people buying replacement parts from you, or if you're a distributor with an outlet store, or even if you have maybe a few retail locations, this might be a good solution for you. So what it does, it lives right in Nav or Business Central, and it doesn't look that much different from a standard sales order, right? Because it is built into into the standard interface. But what it allows you to do is all the things that you would normally have to do with a point of sale solution that Nav or Business Central just don't cover. Things like multiple payment methods per order, taking deposits, doing layaways, scanning barcodes to build up your sales order. So somebody drops 5 items on the counter, you can just scan them in instead of having to do the search. It's got advanced item searching for descriptions and things like that. So really, and lost sale tracking and price overrides, everything you'd expect to have in a decent point of sale solution, this has it. And it's a nice little plug-in. It's not a big footprint or anything like that. It's not intended for, you're not going to hire a high school student to run your point of sale system. This is intended for the people that are in the facility that are, understand the products and need a more advanced tool to sell over the counter. But very good tool, especially given the price point that it's at. And I should mention that everybody hates it when I say our prices are too cheap, but they are. And when I say everybody, customers love it, but the marketing guys hate it. But most of these are priced very, very well. Like the return on investment on most of these products is generally less than a year, right? It's a very smart investment on all of these things that we're talking about. All right, that's enough of a sales pitch there. Now, speaking of sales, the configurator. So what this allows you to do is build up, complex bills of material and routings based on simple option selections. You can also set up rules and formulas within it to allow you to, very easily have from a sales quote or sales order, choose a few options, and then bang, you've got, the full bill of materials and full routing. Or if you're just doing assemblies, it'll create an assembly BOM for you as well. And, there's lots of configurators out there, and they all start, at a very high price point, and they're probably worth it for that level of capability. We take you, all the core stuff we can do just as well as sort of the larger configurator guys out there. But we're again now back to the pricing. We're like less than 10% of the cost of the other configurators that you'll find on the market, and we do essentially the same thing, right? So very good tool to look at if you do have configurable products. All right, last one here is the planning and scheduling. So we talked about the shop floor insight, where you're able to go in and maybe drag and drop things around, those sorts of things. If you have a fairly complex production environment that you have trouble scheduling or you need more help with, what MX will do is it'll actually generate the schedule for you automatically based on your material availability, which of course NAV doesn't do, based on your labor constraints, based on your existing capacities and usage and utilization. You can minimize setup times, so you can sequence products. Really, any scheduling problem that you can throw at us, we can solve. So it's a fairly high-end scheduling tool. It's not, it's not something you can plug in and get going in a day. But if you have those complex scheduling requirements, we can solve that. And this tool, actually, we've had for quite a while. We've only recently started selling it in the NAV and Business Central world. But, historically, it's been sold to guys like Ford and Honda who actually use it globally to schedule their manufacturing. So it's a fairly capable tool that we've brought now into the NAV and Business Central ecosystem. All right. So that was basically all I wanted to cover off as far as a product overview here. What we're going to do is I'm going to jump in and just give you really a high-level overview of three of the sort of key products that we have available. All right, so we're going to start here, and what you see on the screen, this Data Logic Falcon device is actually a device I have in my hand, and I can use that to scan barcodes and things like that. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to jump in and look at how some of these things work on the handheld. Well, we're going to look at one or two things. But these are all the applications that I mentioned that we have within the system. These are all the ones that I have loaded here. But the nice thing about this is, as I mentioned, all of these applications are built within our application builder. So you can go in and modify them or add your own applications. And just for fun, I'm actually going to show you what that looks like, that application builder. I usually don't on demos, but what the heck, this isn't technically a demo. So here I've got a few applications listed here. And what I can do is if I come in here and hit design, what that will do is it'll actually open up our designer. And in the newer versions, this actually opens up right in NAV. And it shows me that actual application. So what this is the actual inventory count application. So this is our advanced inventory count. This is what runs on that handheld device. And why would I show you this? Because it looks very confusing. To show you a little bit about how we would actually extend this application or build it. So what I could do is I could say, hey, you know what, when somebody does something on the scanner, like maybe when they scan a license plate, in other words, a pallet or a box or whatever, they're going to scan a license plate barcode. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to ask the user to, enter some data or whatever I want to do, or maybe I just get them to go ahead and sign the screen because that's kind of fun. And then on top of that, after they sign the screen, I want to, maybe do something within NAV, and I can come in and I can say, you know what, I'm going to change the expiration date for whatever reason. So that function down here that I set, that's coming right out of NAV or Business Central. So I'm actually able to call business logic within NAV just like that, and that's how I can add my applications or modify my applications. So if I save this and I go in our inventory count and I scan a license plate, it's going to ask me to sign the screen and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I probably beat that to death, but it's kind of a cool tool. It makes it very easy to build this stuff up and modify the applications. Now let's go back to the scanner, and I'll show you how these things work. So after I've built that application, what does it look like on the handle? So I'm really just going to jump into the pick to start with. And the way the picks work, we work with any configuration within NAV or Business Central. So that can be you don't even have to have bins turned on to use it. And if you're actually in NAV on premises, you don't even need locations turned on, but generally you'll have a location. And after that, we don't care how you set it up. You can have bins mandatory or not. You can have advanced warehousing turned on or any combination of that stuff. In my case, I've got picks turned on. So when I go to do picking, I'm actually going to pick against the pick document. If you don't have that turned on, you can pick against a sales order or transfer order or whatever you like. Now, the way I do it, normally we print out a pick ticket. There's a piece of paper on the printer. It means I have work to do. I grab it, I scan the barcode, and I start my pick. Or if I want to go more paperless, like maybe your shipper is the picker, they don't need a piece of paper to trigger them to do work. They can just hit this lookup button. And what it'll do is it'll give them a list of all the picks in the system that are assigned to them or that are unassigned. So what that means is I can come in here, I can choose pick number 4. Again, this could be a sales order or transfer order, and it'll automatically assign it to me. But if I grab pick number 4 here, it loads it up and shows me everything on the screen that I actually need to pick. And this one's a small one, but this could be 6,000 lines. We actually do have people that have picks that are 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 lines long that they actually execute on the handheld device. At any rate, all the columns here are all configurable, and that's done from either NAV or that workflow builder, depending on what you're doing. So you can change how this thing looks, how it works, all of those sorts of things. Similarly with the menus, you can change all these menus from within NAV or Business Central. So you can really tailor this very easily to your environment. Most of it just works out of the box. You don't have to mess with anything. But if you did want to change it, like maybe you want to get rid of that post menu for certain people, when Joe logs in, he doesn't see post, but when Fred logs in, he can see post, as an example. Okay, so all of these are configurable, and you notice there's a print option here, so I can print directly from the handheld. If I need to print a copy of a label while I'm receiving or anything like that, we can do that as well. All right, now the way it actually works though is very easy. All I have to do, I got some screen share lag here. My screen share has died from my handheld to this thing. All right, so the way it works, I'll keep talking and hopefully the lag stops here. But what it does is I just go ahead and I scan barcodes. I don't have to know, what I'm scanning. I simply scan the bin, I scan the item, and I record the quantity that I'm scanning. And of course, now my screen share has died, so we'll leave that for now. And that's as simple as that. You never have to choose an edit box to scan into. You never have to tell the system what you're trying to do. You just scan a barcode and it reacts accordingly. And the barcodes that we scan, by the way, that can be any format you like. Oh, it's back. Yay, we can play again. All right, so the format can be anything that you like. We normally use data matrix barcodes, which means we can fit item number, lot number, expiration date, quantity, unit of measure, all in a barcode that's about a half an inch square. Or if you make that barcode 2 inches square, I can read that from 50 feet away with the right scanner. So it makes it very easy to scan pallets and things like that from a forklift. Now, what I was going to show you is how I execute this. So let's say, I want to start picking, well, we got way too much lag because nothing's happening on the screen here. I would just essentially scan the bin again, scan the item, and optionally enter the quantity. This the screen share thing is not happy, so we're going to skip that. All right, so that's basically the warehouse insight portion of it. Very simple, scan barcodes, and away we go. Looks like it's reacting again. I'll give it one more chance to work. So if I was actually to do a pick, I would scan the bin. It highlights it for informational purposes, so you can see it highlighted the bin I scanned, and then I simply scan the item that I'm picking out of that particular bin. It can optionally show you a picture when you scan, so if you want to see a picture of that item, it'll show you, which is handy if you have visually distinct items. From here, I can have the quantity default in. I've got a whole bunch of options for quantity. I can use the calculator if I want to add stuff up, or I could change the unit of measure, and that's basically all we do. So we scan the bin, scan the item, enter the quantity, and we're done. If I need to drill down on this, let's say there was an issue with this, from any point in the system, I can either tap the screen, which you really never have to touch the screen, which is handy if you have big sausage fingers and you can't touch the screen. I could hit F8 to drill down, but if I hit item inquiry as an example, I can drill down to that and get all the detail about that particular item. Let's say there weren't enough to pick. Well, I've got a whole bunch in stock, and here's where I can find them in the warehouse. So that ability to drill down is very important. Gives you a lot more insight into what's happening in the warehouse. But I didn't want to spend too much time on it. I just wanted to show you basically how it worked. We don't have to, very easy to use. You stand in front of the warehouse people and you repeat scan bin, scan item, enter quantity 100 times, and they're trained up. That's basically what you do. Well, maybe not quite, but close. All right, now once I've picked everything, we can go into shipping. And shipping is dynamic ship. And what I'm going to do now, everything in dynamic ship works, of course, in the NAV RTC, and it also works in the web client. So maybe what I'll do is I'll show you what it looks like in the new web client. For those of you who aren't running this yet and maybe considering moving up to it, it'll give you a taste of it. And for those of you who are running, the Business Central web client, this will be more familiar to you. At any rate, when I've picked everything and I want to take it off to shipping, one of the options is to do that shipping from within NAV or Business Central. I can do pretty much everything I'm about to show you. I can also do from the handhelds. But sometimes what I'm showing you now is a better approach, because the pickers just picked everything. They've dropped it off at the shipping station. And now the shipper is going to package all this stuff up, get the labels and everything else. Well, again, I can do all that from the handheld, but it might be a little more cumbersome scanning it. If I'm doing LTL shipments and I'm building up pallets, I may want to use that handheld device because I'm a lot more mobile. I can walk around the pallet and scan everything and away I go. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to package everything from within NAV or Business Central. So the first thing I do is, it says up at the top there, it says, hey, scan the order that you want to start packing. So scan the barcode on the pick ticket or whatever it is. Oh, I'm going to plug my USB scanner in. So what I've got attached to the PC here is just this little USB scanner. And what I'm scanning here is I'm scanning either the order barcodes, the item barcodes, or actual commands. And a command actually is the same as if I went to one of these menus here and chose one of these things. Well, instead of choosing it from the menu, I can just scan a barcode that basically executes one of these menu actions. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So the next thing it tells me to do is, hey, we need to package this up. And so what I do is I say, okay, yep, let's start packaging. So I'm going to create a box for myself. This could be a box or pallet. Creates one for me. Here's the dimensions and weight of that box. The dimensions, so you might have 5 or 6 standard box sizes that you use. You can scan a command that says, hey, I'm using box size 3, and it pops in all of this detail. The weight we can read from a scale, or we can manually enter it, or we could calculate it. So all of that just comes in by default. And then I can tell the system exactly which items are going into which box if I like. Or in this case, let's say it's just one box. I'm going to just package everything into that one box, and everything is packaged up. Now again, what I could have done was I could have split that up. And if you go online and look at the full-blown recorded demo of this, you'll see how we can split up these items into multiple boxes and those sorts of things. And here I actually scanned 3 barcodes to get to this point. That could have been 2 barcodes. I basically scan the order, and then I scan one command. It generates a box, packages everything up for me, and actually prints out my shipping label all in one shot. Okay, so it can be that simple, where I go scan the order, scan my get label command, and out pops the label, and everything else happens automatically. Now we'll talk about, I'm about to get the label because I've got everything packaged, right? Order's fully packaged up, so I'm going to print out my shipping label. But one thing you'll notice here is the shipping agent code for this order is blank. We haven't chosen a carrier yet. So that might be a little unusual if you're doing parcel shipments, because you'll choose UPS or FedEx or USPS or whatever it happens to be when you're entering the order, or it'll default in from the customer. In this case, we've left that blank. Now for LTL, it might be blank, and the warehouse chooses which carrier they want to use, but usually for parcel shipments, it's not. So what I'm going to do when I go and say, okay, print me my label, the system is going to go, hey, I don't know how you want to ship this thing. You tell me how you want to ship it first. So I execute the command for get label. And what it does, because it doesn't know the carrier, it brings up a list of all the carriers that I have access to, and I can choose the one I want to use. Now again, for parcel stuff, the warehouse guys might never see this screen. You can set it up so it just automatically chooses the lowest rate if if nobody's selected on the sales order. But you can also see the screen at the sales order or sales quote level. So you can do rate shopping, when you're quoting an order out to somebody. Okay, and it gives you, now this is a Canadian shipment, I'm shipping in Canada here, so we've got Canada Post, but that could be USPS or whatever it is. And I've got all my FedEx and UPS options and delivery dates and everything else, so I can sort by date or price or whatever I like to choose the one I want to use. I'm going to choose this FedEx 2-day guy here, and that's it. All right, as soon as I choose that, it's going to print out my labels and packing slip and custom labeling. If you have different pallet labeling for different customers, it can print all that out. So it's going to generate all those documents for me automatically. I've got this set up to do a print preview here, so you can actually see what the labels look like. Not rocket magic or anything. There's my FedEx label with the tracking number and everything on it. So that's basically it. Now the nice thing, we did a whole bunch of other stuff when I did that as well. We went in and first of all, we let the customer know that their order is on the way. So if I log into Gmail here as if I'm the customer, so I'm the customer that's expecting the package. Here's my email that I just received. The text of this email you can control. You can make it look however you want. You can specify a whole bunch of replaceable text in here like carrier and all that kind of stuff. But the important bit is it gives us this tracking link. And when I click on that, what it does is it takes the customer to a page that has your logo on it, your advertising, all of that kind of stuff, and this nice progress bar here. If I just hit refresh, it updates every few seconds. So here, the customer can come in to keep track of where their package is, and at the same time, your marketing people are trying to sell them on this week's special or whatever it happens to be. And that's how you get the marketing guys to pay for the shipping software. I always make that joke, but it's not actually even that much of a joke, right? If you ask the marketing guys how much it costs them to get a customer to come to their website that's bought something recently, that might be a few dollars for all you know. Well, this is basically included in the system. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Now, The nice thing is, regardless of the carrier, this page is the same. The only thing that changes is this logo here. So it's a UPS or FedEx or USPS or whatever carrier you're using. Again, we've got about 100 different carriers. We can initiate shipments in other countries. So, if you want to do a return shipment from, Mexico or something like that, you can create that return label to ship from Mexico back in, or whatever you want to do. Any country, Asia, it doesn't matter. And we get all the same level of detail on this page as if we actually went to FedEx, right? All the scans and everything else. So it's a nice way of presenting that information to the customer. Now, if it's a carrier we don't support, like an LTL carrier or some local carrier, if they have a website for tracking, we can still send that email. But what'll happen is it'll end up taking them to the carrier's website versus your pretty website. So if there's a carrier we don't have that online support for, we still send the tracking link, but it takes them to the carrier's webpage. If you're using one of the 100 or so carriers we currently support, it takes them to a nice page like this. All right, probably spent too much time on that, but it's kind of cool. A few other things we did just briefly when I did that. So again, I only scanned like 3 or 4 commands there. It took me literally 10 seconds if I wasn't talking through the whole process. It was like 10 seconds to get to the point where I've got my rates, my labels, everything done. I also sent the customer an email. And if we actually look at that sales order that we just dealt with, we'll open that up here. Take a sec here, and the sandbox environments sometimes tend to be a little slow. And we scroll down and you can see we've now indicated that it is FedEx 2-day. Here's the tracking number for that. We also keep track of the individual package tracking numbers. So if it had several packages, I know the tracking number for each individual package as well. So we set the tracking number, of course. And then up here, we added this delivery, this freight charge to the order as well. So over here, we can see what we're going to charge this customer for the freight, $136. Well, it was only 117 or something like that from FedEx. We've marked it up by 10%. So you have all those rules that you can set up. You can set it up by customer, by carrier, by order value, by freight value, by carrier service, all of those sorts of things. You can define whether you want to do flat rate, you want to mark it up, you want to discount it, all of those sorts of things. So for example, here we marked it up by 10%, but if I scroll over, you'll see we also gave the customer a 100% discount on that freight. So now they get their invoice and they say, wow, that was going to cost me a lot of freight. Good thing it was free because I bought enough to make the free freight threshold. So all those rules are configurable. But a lot like Warehouse Insight, where I showed you that app builder, we don't have the app builder for this, but we can extend any of the business logic in this just by plugging in additional business logic. So historically, at least in the NAV world, if you wanted to modify how shipping systems work, you had to dig in there and modify their code, and it was a big mess. You don't have to do that with ours. If you want custom business logic for how we calculate the price to charge to the customer, you can build that essentially completely externally to our system. And we just call it and say, hey, how much do we charge in this situation? You tell us and we drop it in here. And that applies to anything in the system. So how we get the labels, how we get the freight price, how we package things, you get to override all of that without ever touching our code. And that's very compelling, especially if you are looking at upgrading in the future. You're not stuck with this massive modification of the base product or anything else. All right, so that's a little bit on the shipping. So what I covered off there very briefly is, you can go into the handheld, you can perform any warehouse operations. I did a little bit of picking there. Once it's picked, I can either ship either from the handheld device using the shipping here, or I can go to NAV and Business Central and complete my shipping from within there, and we're done. We can also do production on here, and that's consumption and output on the handheld device, and this runs on a tablet as well. You can run it on Android or Windows or whatever you like. So if you did want to run it on a tablet by the production area, you could. But if you need more, comprehensive production management, that's where we get into the shop floor insight. So, let's say I received something, raw material, I'd ask to, I put it away, then I pick it over for production. It shows up in production. Now production has to execute and build that product before I ship it out. Well, shop floor insight is a good tool for that. So what you see on the screen here is an example of what we generally call, production or graphical dispatch list. So we call it production scheduler, but this is a graphical dispatch list. And what we mean by dispatch list is that, if I'm an operator, working at this particular work center. I could be a welder working at this machine center here. I can see graphically all the work that's coming up at my particular work center over the next day and week or hour or whatever it happens to be, whatever Zoom level you like. So I can graphically see what's coming up. And on any of these, I can either click on this with the mouse and keyboard, or you can use a touch screen like a tablet. I can just tap on that, and then I can tap clock on to actually start recording my time against that activity. Okay. Now, if you are on a tablet or something, you can zoom in and make everything nice and big and tappable with your finger. And if you're on a mouse and keyboard, maybe you want to zoom out and give yourself a lot more real estate. But the bottom line is I can come in, I can select any of these guys. You notice when I choose this one, it turns green, and all the related operations also turn green. And what this allows me to also do beyond just sort of clocking in and out is I can come in, I can look at the bill of materials, so just informational if I want, or I can actually do consumption from this screen here. I can also look at work instructions, so if we've got special instructions for that. The picture, here's a typical bicycle picture, or if a picture isn't enough or work instructions isn't enough, I could have a drawing, like an assembly diagram or something like that shown, and I can launch that from here. So this view is actually quite nice. It's more than just a graphical indication of my schedule. I can use it to track my time. I can use it to do consumption, output, quality, all of those sorts of things. And in addition to that, I can also use it as an actual graphical schedule. So let's say I come in and I'm the supervisor. These are very short operations. I should actually zoom into the hour. But let's say I come in here. This thing's supposed to run, Monday morning at 8 a.m. And let's say I come in, I don't have an operator to run that machine on Monday. So I'm actually going to say, you know what, we're going to reschedule this thing. I'm going to drag it, and I'm going to drop it here on Tuesday at noon. And that's where I'm going to schedule it. And when I do that, it actually reschedules all the related operations associated with that production order on time. So you can actually use it for drag and drop scheduling, and you can actually go out, months in the future and that sort of thing. It's generally intended for sort of, rescheduling on the shop floor, but we have people, production planners that use this to plan their schedules. You can also change the colors on this, for example, if it hasn't started and it was supposed to start, you can turn it red. If it's a certain type of, let's say you're producing multiple colors, you could actually have these the same color of the item that you're producing. So if you need to sequence it by color, you can do that. All sorts of good stuff that you can do within the schedule. And this is only one part of the entire solution. Most of what we do with this is actual labor tracking, where I would come in and I would simply scan barcodes to capture time against these operations. Again, here, if I have a touch screen, I can tap this guy, I can tap clock on, and it'll start recording time against that particular activity, okay? But I can also do that through barcode scanning. So I'll switch over here. And in this case, what I would do is as an employee, I'd have this terminal sitting out on the shop floor, just has to run a web browser, so it could be almost anything you like. But typically we see consumer grade monitors hooked up to a thin client PC or something like that. And what an employee will do is they'll walk up, they'll identify themselves. You can set it up so they can type in their employee ID, but barcodes are way less error prone. So I walk up, I scan my ID badge, and that ID badge, by the way, we print from NAV or Business Central. So I scan my badge, unlocks the terminal, and shows me my time card for the day. Haven't done anything yet today, so it's blank. So then what I do is I simply scan the activity I'm working on. So if you have a shop traveler that you use that'll have barcodes on it, I simply scan one barcode, and it clocks me into that activity, gives me all those details we saw earlier, and now I can wander off and do my work. So it's, scan my badge, beep, scan the order that I'm working on, beep, and I'm off to the races. So it's beep, beep, and it's like the Roadrunner, so beep, beep, you run off and you do your work. And that's it. And now I can lock the screen again if I like, or it'll lock after a certain period of time. I come back later, an hour later when I'm done, scan my badge again to unlock it, and then I scan the next thing I'm working on. And in this case, I scanned a job instead of a production order. So we support production orders, jobs, fixed assets, non-productive time, and service orders for capturing time, typically on the shop floor, but some people use the job stuff for field service type work. So that's basically it on shop floor insight. I mean, there's a lot more. We do time and attendance. We can integrate with payroll. We have facial recognition for the time and attendance, so people just walk up to the terminal, it recognizes them and clocks them in for the day, those types of things. There's a ton of stuff it does, very comprehensive solution if you're a manufacturer. All right, so I'm just under the 45-minute mark, and I think that's all I'm going to cover off today as far as the products. Actually, I will briefly mention NAV Extender. So when you run NAV Extender, you know, this is the tool that shows up on the toolbar, or the app that runs. But really all that means is on any page within the system now, I can go in, well, let's do a production order. I can go in, come on, wakey. Now my nav is slow too. So I can go in and let's say I choose a particular production order. I can come in here, open up that production order. Come on. It's not taking my hotkeys. And I can simply drag and drop, right? So up here, there's a NAV Extender icon, but I can take any document I like within the system. Let's say I've got, you know, whatever, a couple of these guys, assembly diagram. I can just drag and drop anywhere into this page, drop it, and it will attach those items to the to the thing. And now we can see we've got them attached. If I've got it set up, I can also have it automatically create record links, so I can actually use the record link functionality within NAV as well. But that's basically it. And this takes no modification to NAV or anything else, and it works on any page within the system, any card type page or document page in the system. I can just drag and drop right into it. All right, so now that's all I'm going to cover for you.
Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel.